The sound of rain was the only witness. Their apartment, once overflowing with laughter, now felt like a hollow stage where two ghosts stood rehearsing their final lines. The clock ticked, slow and cruel, marking the last seconds of USES. A suitcase waited by the door, its handle trembling from her grip. He didn't plead. He didn't cry. He only stared. That kind of stare that holds 1,000 questions but no courage to ask even one. How long had she been planning this? And worse, how long had he known something was already gone? When she finally said, "I think we should stop pretending," the words didn't cut. They dissolved. Silence spread like fog. Thick, suffocating, honest. The truth wasn't in her words, but in everything left unsaid. A shared history collapsing under its own weight, leaving him wondering if love had ever been real, or just a beautifully rehearsed lie. He sat alone long after she left, surrounded by fragments that still smelled like her. Perfume on the pillow, a hair tie coiled near the lamp. The rain stopped, but the quiet that followed was worse. It was too clean, too complete. He looked at the suitcase-shaped emptiness near the door and realized this wasn't the end of a fight. It was the end of a story. Every breath he took echoed through the hollow room, and in that emptiness, he felt the faintest pulse of something unfamiliar: relief. But with relief came guilt. How could something that once felt infinite now feel like air leaving the lungs? Maybe the worst part wasn't losing her. Maybe it was realizing he'd already lost himself years ago. Morning arrived without permission. The first light crept across the floor, exposing every untouched detail of the night before: the untouched coffee mug, the damp towel, the indentation on the couch where she used to sit. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the door kept closing again, over and over, slower each time, like a cruel replay button he couldn't stop pressing. He wandered the apartment barefoot, unsure what to do with the space her absence had created. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was judgmental, watching him from every corner. He thought of texting her, not to beg, not even to talk, just to know she was real outside these walls. But he didn't. He couldn't, because if she answered, he'd have to face the truth, that she'd already moved on while he was still standing here, waiting for time to rewind. He tried to clean, as if order could replace her presence. He folded the blanket she used to wrap herself in, wiped down the counter she always cluttered with receipts, unplugged her hairdryer like it was a bomb waiting to go off. But with every item he touched, he realized he was rewriting history, erasing fingerprints, deleting evidence of love. When he found her sweater draped over the chair, he froze. It still carried her scent, faint, sweet, impossible to forget. He pressed it against his face and felt time collapse. The world shrank to that single cruel softness. For a moment, he thought if he stood still enough, maybe she'd come back to retrieve it. But the door stayed shut, and the only thing that moved was the light, crawling slowly toward the walls, as if trying to escape the room too. By nightfall, the apartment looked cleaner, but emptier, too clean to feel alive. He sat on the floor near the window, the same place he once watched her laugh under city fireworks. Now, only reflections remained, distorted echoes of what used to be. He scrolled through their photos, thumb pausing on each smile as though stopping could change the outcome. Every picture was proof of a life that once felt solid, now reduced to pixels and ache. Then his phone vibrated. A message. His breath caught, her name on the screen. But it wasn't a text, it was a payment notification. Shared cloud storage canceled. His throat tightened. Just like that, she deleted the last thing connecting them, the archive of their years together. He closed his eyes. The screen dimmed. Outside, thunder rolled. Distant and final, days passed like slow echoes. Every corner of the apartment whispered her name. In the empty hangers, the missing toothbrush, the the silent playlists that once filled the air. He tried distraction. Long walks, cold showers, work emails typed and deleted. But grief had no schedule. It arrived whenever it wanted. One night, he opened an old folder on his laptop labeled US. Thousands of pictures, videos, voice notes, their years together unfolding in pixels. But something strange happened. In a few photos, details didn't match his memory. A dinner date at a restaurant had never been to. A selfie she'd captioned, "Best night ever." But he couldn't remember that night at all. The timestamps didn't add up. A cold unease slid through him. Maybe heartbreak wasn't the only mystery she'd left behind. He started going through her old things, half out of longing, half suspicion. Receipts, notes, post-it reminders, tiny ghosts of routine. One envelope, however, stopped him cold. It was sealed, marked, "Do not open." Her handwriting, careful, deliberate. He held it under the lamp, light revealing faint indentation marks on the back. Curiosity outweighed fear. Inside were Polaroids, not of them, but of strangers. Faces blurred, places unfamiliar, timestamps recent. None included him. His heart raced. Who were they? Why did she hide them? The woman he loved had lived carefully, predictably, or so he thought. But these photos told another story, one she never meant for him to see. He couldn't sleep. The envelope lay open beside him, its contents scattered like unanswered questions. He thought about calling her, demanding an explanation. But what would he say? "Why do I not exist in your memories?" He searched through old texts, scrolling months back, years back. Some messages were missing, entire conversations erased. He checked backups, even social media archives. The gaps weren't random. They formed a pattern. Her life had two versions, the one he lived with her, and the one she left behind. He realized with a hollow ache that maybe he'd only ever known half of her. In the morning, he met his friend at a nearby cafe, someone who had seen the relationship from the outside. Between sips of burnt coffee and tired smiles, he finally spoke the words, "I think she lied to me." The friend frowned, confused, then sighed like he'd been waiting for this. "She wasn't who you thought she was," he said quiet. "I tried to tell you once, but you were too in love." The cafe noise dimmed. The air shifted. He leaned in, heart pounding. But before his friend could continue, a phone rang. A call he couldn't ignore. The moment broke apart, leaving the question suspended in steam and silence. Later that day, the phone call replayed in his mind. The voice on the other end, polite but unfamiliar. "Mr. Reed, this is regarding the storage unit under Maya's name. The payment card expired. Should we close the account?" He hadn't known she had one. Heart hammering, he asked for the address. It was across town, in an area she'd never mentioned. By evening, he stood outside the metal rows of cold blue doors, key still attached to the envelope she left behind. The sound of distant thunder rumbled through the storage facility. He slid the key into the lock, turned it, and heard the first metallic click of the truth waiting to be opened. The smell of dust and metal filled the air as he rolled the door up. A single bulb flickered inside the storage unit, revealing boxes stacked like secrets, each one labeled in her handwriting: books, kitchen, winter clothes. But one box sat apart from the rest, no label, sealed with black tape. His fingers trembled as he cut through it. Inside, notebooks, printed emails, and a small phone wrapped in a silk scarf. The wallpaper lit up, a photo of her smiling, but not at him. The timestamp read, 2 weeks before the breakup. His pulse thudded in his ears. The truth wasn't buried deep. It was waiting quietly for him to be ready to look. He powered on the phone. No password, just her initials flashing briefly, then a gallery of photos, most of them recent. She was smiling, but always with someone else beside her. A man, had never seen. In some, they were traveling. In others, they were home. Her home. His throat tightened. Every image was time-stamped during nights she'd told him she was working late. A faint nausea crept up his spine. He scrolled further, desperate, angry, terrified, until he saw one picture that froze his breath. She was wearing the same sweater he'd found on his chair, smiling into someone else's camera. The air felt heavier. He sat on the cold floor, phone in hand, replaying every lie disguised as love. Every busy night, every sudden trip, every time she had looked away mid-conversation. Yet the anger didn't burn enough. His body refused to react. Instead, he felt something colder than betrayal, insignificance. Had he been a placeholder? A chapter she forgot to erase. The phone buzzed suddenly. An incoming message. From an unknown number. "You shouldn't have gone there." His heart lurched. The message disappeared a second later, as if it had never been sent. He left the storage unit in a haze. Outside, the rain had turned to mist. The city lights smeared into ribbons across his windshield as he drove aimlessly. Every red light felt like a test. Stop. Think. Breathe. But his mind refused to slow down. Who had sent that message? How did they know he was there? He pulled over, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He checked the phone again, but the message was gone, replaced by silence. And yet, deep in his gut, he knew. This wasn't random. Someone was watching. Someone who wanted the truth to stay buried. By dawn, he returned home, drained and shaking. He set the phone on the table like a loaded gun. Sleep refused him, but the need for answers wouldn't rest. He plugged the phone into his laptop, searching the files, every folder leading deeper into the unknown. Hidden behind layers of encryption, he found voice recordings. Her voice. "If you're hearing this," she said softly, "then you already know." His blood froze. "I didn't mean for you to find out this way. But there's more you need to see. Check the last folder." Static. Then silent. The file ended, leaving the air too quiet. The truth wasn't finished yet. It was just beginning to speak. He couldn't resist. The voice note haunted him. "There is more you need to see." So he followed the last folder's coordinates. It led to a cafe near the old pier, a place he'd never visited. The address matched several photos from her hidden phone. His pulse raced as he entered. The scent of espresso and salt water hit him, nostalgic yet foreign. At the far corner, someone looked up. For a split second, he thought it was her. Same dark hair, same tilt of the head. But then the woman spoke, and the illusion shattered. "You're Ethan," she said quietly. "She told me you'd come." The words cracked open the floor beneath him. She knew his name. She knew her. And she'd been waiting. She introduced herself softly, almost apologetically. "I'm Clara. I was with her too." The words didn't register at first. They floated, absurd and impossible. But then she showed him. Photos, messages, receipts, all from dates that overlapped with his own. Maya hadn't been torn between them. She'd been duplicating her life. Same restaurants, same gestures, same lines. Clara's eyes glistened with confusion, not hatred. "She told me about you," she whispered. "Said you were her brother." The coffee went cold between them as realization sank in. They both lived inside the same lie, unknowingly playing the same role in someone else's story. They sat in silence for what felt like hours. Outside, the sea lapped lazily against the pier. But inside, the air was brittle with disbelief. Clara said finally, quieter. Quieter, sadder. He thought of their last weeks together, her sudden absences, her distant stares. "She wanted to stop," Clara continued, voice breaking. "But she said it was too late." Too late for what? Guilt? Fear? Fear? Or something darker? Ethan pulled the phone from his pocket, showing Clara the message he'd received. You shouldn't have gone there. Her face drained of color. I got the same one, she whispered. They compared everything. Timelines, texts, call logs. The pattern was unmistakable. Maya had maintained 2 parallel relationships, alternating weekends, splitting birthdays, even sending pre-scheduled messages while she was with the other. But what chilled him most wasn't the deceit. It was the precision. Every lie had structure, timing, purpose. She was covering something, Clara murmured. Ethan scrolled through another photo. One of Maya smiling beside a man he didn't recognize. In the reflection of a window behind her, another figure was visible, watching them. Not him, not Clara, someone else entirely. By evening, they decided to search together. Clara knew an address Maya had once mentioned, a small apartment near the harbor. The hallway smelled of rust and salt. The door was unlocked. Inside, the space was nearly empty except for a single framed photo on the wall. The 3 of them. Ethan, Maya, Clara, all together, smiling, unaware. His breath hitched as he stared at the image. When was this taken? He whispered. Clara shook her head, eyes wide. I've never been here before. On the back of the frame, someone had written 2 words in neat handwriting. Keep looking. They spent the next few days piecing together what Maya had left behind. Every discovery only deepened the mystery. Her digital trail was deliberate. Alternate accounts, different email addresses, folders titled in code. Clara handled the technical side while Ethan dug through physical evidence. Together, they built a map of places, names, and transactions. But one pattern emerged. Each location corresponded to someone who disappeared from her life abruptly. Friends, co-workers, neighbors. It wasn't just deceit. It was erasure. Maya hadn't just been living double lives. She'd been wiping them clean afterward, like pages torn from a diary. What was she hiding? Ethan whispered. The question hung between them like a ghost neither dared to touch. Among the files, Ethan found something he hadn't noticed before, a scanned receipt from a private therapy clinic under Maya's name. The session notes were encrypted, but one line was visible. Patient exhibits dissociative identity traits. Recommends separation of self-constructs. His heart pounded. Dissociative identity. Could that explain everything? The double lives, the overlapping timelines, the identical gestures shared between him and Clara. He showed Clara, expecting relief. But she looked away. It's not that simple, she said. I saw her with him, the man in the reflection. She wasn't confused. She was scared. Ethan realized then. Maybe Maya wasn't the manipulator. Maybe she was running from someone else. They returned to the storage unit for answers. The air inside was colder than before. The bulb above flickering, as if in warning. In the bottom of one box, Ethan found a USB drive hidden inside a hollowed-out book. On it were voice memos. Not from Maya, but from another woman. If she finds out I'm talking to you, it's over, the voice whispered. He's not who you think he is. The file ended abruptly. Clara looked pale. That's her voice, she murmured. But it's not Maya. The realization hit like a wave. There were 2 voices, 2 lives, and 1 truth that tied them together. That night, they listened again to the recordings, analyzing background noise, faint traffic hum, a soft ticking clock, ocean waves. It's recorded near the pier, Clara realized. The same area as the photo of the 3 of them. Ethan replayed the last seconds. A faint male voice whispered something before the static took over. He amplified it, filtered it, enhanced it, until the words emerged clearly. Keep looking. The same message written behind the frame. Maya hadn't been leaving breadcrumbs for guilt. She'd been leading them to someone, or warning them about someone following. Nishu. The next morning, a final clue surfaced. a transfer receipt to a name neither recognized. Lucas Vane, the same man from the photos. The account was linked to a defunct business at the docks. She was paying him, Clara said, or he was paying her. They drove to the address, an abandoned boathouse smelling of salt and gasoline. Inside, boxes of documents, cameras, and dozens of photos of both Ethan and Clara. Every movement tracked, every meeting logged. This wasn't love gone wrong. It was surveillance disguised as romance. Ethan stared at the evidence, trembling. "We weren't her lovers," he whispered. "We were her cover." The discovery shattered everything they believed. Maya hadn't just been living a double life. She had been part of something far larger. A network of falsified relationships and hidden surveillance. Ethan couldn't breathe as he stared at the photos pinned to the boathouse wall. His own face caught from angles he didn't remember. "We were targets," Clara said softly. "But for what?" A sudden sound echoed. Footsteps on the pier. Someone else was here. Ethan turned off the flashlight. They crouched in silence as a figure passed the broken window, flashlight sweeping through the mist. Then a phone buzzed in Ethan's pocket. Too loud, too sudden. The beam of light froze, turned toward them. They ran, through rain-slicked planks, between rusted boats, into the night. The figure followed, heavy footsteps pounding behind them. Ethan's lungs burned as he and Clara ducked beneath a tilted vessel, gasping. He peeked out. A man stood near the dock, tall, broad-shouldered, the same one from the photos, Lucas. He was holding something metallic that caught the faint moonlight. Clara gripped Ethan's arm, whispering, "He's not looking for her. He's looking for us." Ethan's mind reeled. The puzzle pieces clicked too easily now. The hidden money, the photos, the dual lives. Maya hadn't been deceiving them for pleasure. She'd been protecting them. From him. They waited until silence returned. The rain softened, leaving only the sound of water dripping from the hulls. Ethan's phone buzzed again. One new message. From Maya's number: "If you've found him, don't confront him. Leave now." His heart dropped. She was alive. Clara grabbed the phone. "We can't just run." But Ethan was already moving toward the dock's end, rage replacing fear. "She lied to us," he muttered. "We deserve answers." As he stepped into the open, Lucas turned. Their eyes met across the fog. For the first time, Ethan saw not a stranger, but a man who recognized him instantly, as though he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "What do you want from us?" Ethan shouted across the rain. Lucas didn't answer. He stepped closer, calm, almost pitying. "You shouldn't have dug this deep," he said. "She tried to keep you safe." Clara appeared behind Ethan, shaking. "Safe from what?" Lucas paused, glancing toward her. "From me." The words were quiet, but they hit like a storm. "Maya worked for me," he continued. "We built stories to monitor certain people, to keep them under observation. You weren't supposed to find out." Ethan's chest tightened. "So, it was all fake." Lucas shook his head. "Not all. She loved you. That's why she broke protocol." Thunder rolled, the storm reaching its peak. Ethan stepped forward, fists trembling. "Where is she?" Lucas looked down, then met his gaze with something like sorrow. "Gone. Because she chose you." A silence heavier than the rain fell between them. Clara's sob broke it first. Ethan felt the world tilt, everything collapsing inwards. Love, betrayal, truth. Lucas turned away, disappearing into the fog as sirens wailed in the distance. Ethan stood there, numb, rain streaming down his face like tears he couldn't shed. The truth had come full circle, but instead of clarity, it left only ruin. Love sacrificed for protection. Trust burned into memory. Days later, the storm passed, leaving behind a silence that felt too wide. Ethan hadn't spoken to Clara since that night. The police had taken their statements but offered little comfort. Ongoing investigation. they'd said. He returned home to find the apartment exactly as he'd left it. Quiet, untouched, frozen in memory. The suitcase was still by the door. He sat beside it and exhaled, realizing he had been holding his breath for weeks. Every trace of Maya remained. Her handwriting on a note, her perfume faint in the air. But now, instead of confusion, he felt something closer to forgiveness. Maybe she'd done what she had to do. Maybe love had been her last rebellion against the life she'd never chosen. He began visiting the pier again, the place where everything unraveled. This time, there was no fear, only echoes. He stood by the railing, watching the tide carry away scraps of debris from the storm. For the first time, he didn't replay the lies. He replayed the moments that had felt real. Her laughter over bad coffee, her sleepy hum in the car, her hand brushing his just to make sure he was there. Maybe those fragments weren't lies at all. Maybe they were the only truths she could offer. The wind carried salt and something else, the faintest whisper, as if the sea itself said, "You were loved, even if it had to be a secret." Clara reached out weeks later. They met for tea, not to analyze, not to mourn, but to breathe. She'd cut her hair short, started painting again. He noticed the calm in her voice, the quiet strength of someone who'd chosen to move forward. "I think she wanted us to find each other," Clara said. He nodded, unsure how to respond. For a long time, they simply sat, the clinking of cups filling the space where pain used to live. Sometimes healing isn't a loud declaration. It's the simple act of sitting with what's left and deciding to keep living anyway. That night, Ethan returned home to find a small package waiting by his door. No address, no sender. Inside was a single Polaroid. Maya standing on a rocky shore, wind in her hair, smiling. On the back, written in her delicate handwriting, "I'm safe. Thank you for believing in the parts of me that were real." He sat on the couch, the photo trembling slightly in his hands. The truth was still fragmented, incomplete, but maybe that was the point. Love didn't need to make sense to be real. It only needed to leave a trace that changed you forever. Weeks later, he walked through the city at dusk. The air smelled of rain, familiar and forgiving. In a shop window, he caught his reflection. Older, quieter, but lighter somehow. He realized that truth wasn't a single revelation. It was learning to live with the versions of love that survived the lies. He looked up at the skyline, the same one he'd once shared with her, and smiled. Somewhere out there, she was free. And so was he. As he crossed the street, headlights flickered across his face, and for a fleeting second, he could sworn he saw her reflection smiling back at him through the glass, not as a ghost, but as a memory finally at peace.